Good afternoon, Creator. Do you know what day it is? Today is Sunday, the 10th, and it is July 2016, and right now it is 3:19. And right now is the time to go over part 17 out of our lovely book, The Master Key System, written by Charles F. Haanel back in 1916. This book is 100 years old, and the information in it is going to by far be the next, books. The information in this kind of book, in a book like this, is going to be the next, just the next big thing, because it's us. Just like fitness right now is the biggest thing, because it's a part of who we are. And you know what? This is explaining how the mind works, the mental and spiritual, not just the physical part of who you are works. Remember, we're all here to continuously grow, in every direction possible, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Before we get started with this, I just want to go over a little bit about what we learned last week. Last week we went over how everything has periods of growth, and this periodicity is governed by what is known as the septimal law, or in other words, the law of sevens. And the law of sevens, it represents your periods of growth. And like there's 7 stages of the moon. There's 7 days out of the week. There's 5 or 6 stages, or maybe 7, that you go through, within 7 years. He mentioned it as, okay, the first 7 years of your life is your stages of infancy. The next 7, from 7 to 14, is childhood, and it is during childhood where you learn individual responsibility. The next 7, from 14 to 21, is adolescence. You're becoming an adult. And the next 7 from there, from 21 to 28, you're experiencing your full growth period. That is a period where you maintain, or you move into your full growth. And then the next 7 years, from 28 to 35, you move. That's when you start obtaining possessions. Men start getting their property, they start getting their car, they have their family going. That's usually around by the time they reach 35. And from 35 to 42, we go through this period of reactions and changes. And from 42 to 50, our last cycle of sevens, is where we reconstruct and build back together. And by the time we reach the 50th year, we get ready for another cycle of 7 for the next 50 years. And that's very interesting too, because there's 7 colors of the rainbow. The 7 light spectrums which we can see. Of course, there's so much different light rays that are out here, but there's only 7 major rays that we can see. 7 major nerve ganglion in the body, 7 major endocrine glands in the body, your 7 chakras, your energy systems, the 7 planets of the solar system. 777, the lucky number 7. We learned a little bit more about the septimal laws. There was also, what else do we go over? We went over exchange value, things that have exchange value. The exchange value of a thing will determine how much value that thing has for you. Like let's say this dream rock was $5. Okay, I don't really know how much it was. My parents got it for me. But let's say this dream rock was $5. Okay, the exchange value in the rock was for the $5. You have the money, the $5 bill, which symbolizes exchange. You exchange that $5 for this exchange. That is why money is perfectly neutral. There's nothing wrong with it, and there's nothing wrong with desiring more. We all need more. Everybody wants money. Everyone needs money. It's a necessity, and the more you have, the more you will be able to go out and do. But don't forget what we learned in not the Master Key System, we're going over that right now. The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. Riches come to the man who has a purpose. Remember, the man who stays focused on his idea, on the idea of what he wants to do, and not at the end result. And even in here, Charles does talk about that, like the successful businessman focuses strictly on the idea of what he is trying to accomplish. He's not doing it for the money. He's not doing it for the wealth. Because when you do all it for the money, not only are people going to know, but, first of all, not only are people going to know, but second of all, no one's going to want to be doing business with anybody who's just in it for the money, or even wanting to have anything to do with anybody who's just in it for the money. Because if you're just in it for the money, you're not going to have any real interest or investment in the person, the actual individual that is right here in front of you. All you're focusing on is just this exchange value, and that is why it's so important to stay focused on the idea. Because remember, everything comes from the Spirit. You are the Spirit. You are the Creator. You have the power to create your life. You have thoughts. Thinking is the only activity which the Spirit possesses. And whatever you emotionalize those thoughts with, you are connecting with them. You are embodying that image. And you represent and become an embodiment of that, taking on the form. And that is how you create in the outer world. Likewise with the idea. You have to stay focused on the idea. So you stay inside the form of manifesting that in the outer world. Now, what else do we learn? That was for exchange value. We also went over for the mind. Basically what I was just saying right now. Everything has its beginning in mind and its end in form. You yourself have your beginning in your mind and your end in form. Whatever thoughts you are thinking, we had just gone over it. Whatever thoughts you are thinking, you embody, because depending on the material that your mind is weaved out of, whether you have thoughts of vigor, courage, strength, and vitality, thoughts of I am strong, I am whole, thoughts of I am perfect, because when we think these things, remember, we are embodying this image. We embody the image of what we are contemplating ourselves to be. Whatever we are visualizing ourselves to be, whatever we believe ourselves to be, we become an embodiment of. That's why it's so important to have a proper mindset. That is why you need to get the mental equivalent first, and then its manifestation will follow. What else did we go over last week? There was one major one. There was also one for a guy that was talked about his power of visualization, that he admitted that the biggest key to his success was visualizing it, seeing as it is before it actually was. And that process of visualizing helped him succeed in. That was the something about the train station, railroad. Here, let me look back really quick so we could actually see. Henry M. Flagler, the Standard Oil multimillionaire, admitted that the secret of his success was his power to see a thing in its completeness, the power of visualization and idealization. He had the idea and he stayed focused on the idea. He continuously visualized around that idea, bringing the things necessary for him to make that image come to pass. And, the last key thing we got out of it was farsightedness. Stick mainly to the things you know and the things that are scientifically proven to be true. Remember what we learned in mental chemistry. Science objectively proves it to be true. Science objectively. So when it's objectively proven to be like that, that's how you know it really is. That's why you need to stick mainly to the scientific methods, because science of nowadays even explains the law of visualization, and how visualization, you become an embodiment of that, and how you express that in your outer world, creating your environment from that. Science explains all that nowadays, and farsightedness is basically saying don't accept anything other than what science has proven to be true, and that's known as farsightedness. It's very similar to insight. Remember, we learned about insight last week, or the week before that in part 15. We learned about farsightedness in part 16, and now we are about to learn what is in store for us in part 17. So with all that being said, you guys, that's what we gone over last week, and we're definitely excited to see what this week has in store for us. So, introduction, part 17. The kind of deity which a man consciously or unconsciously worships indicates the intellectual status of the worshipper. Ask the Indian of God, and he will describe to you a powerful chieftain of the glorious tribe. Ask the pagan of God, and he will tell you of a god of fire, a god of water, a god of this and that and the other. Ask the Israelite of God, and he will tell you that God of Moses, who conceived it expedient to rule by coercive measures, hence the 10 Commandments. And we actually went over the 10 Commandments in that story with Wallace D. Wattles, and he even said it himself that Moses didn't get all the people he didn't tell the Pharaoh to free the slaves to serve God. Moses said, how Wallace said it in his book, which we should all have an open mind, because now Charles is even saying something about it, that Moses said, let the people go that they may serve me, and even he's saying, Charles is saying, the God of Moses from the Israelite, who conceived it expedient to rule by coerced measures, hence the 10 Commandments, or of Joshua, who led the Israelites into battle, confiscated property, murdered the prisoners, and laid waste to cities. The so-called heathen made, quote, graven image of their gods, whom they were accustomed to worship. I just want to close that really quick. Whom they were accustomed to worship, but among the most intelligent, at least, these images were but the visible fulcrums with which they were enabled to mentally concentrate on the qualities which they desired to externalize in their lives. So basically, all of this, that even known as God's chosen people, even they took on the image of something, and externalized it in their life. And Moses did find out, I am that I am. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all the generations. That is from Exodus 3:15, and that is the name of God. Remember, I am this, I am that. Whatever you are choosing or believing yourself to be, you are creating for the material fabric for your mind. The mental fabric for your mind. You are creating that mindset. Whatever mindset you have, you externalize it in your world, which is exactly what these men did. We of the 21st century worship of God of love in theory, but in practice we make for ourselves, quote, graven images, end quote, of, quote, wealth, power, fashion, custom, and conventionality, quote, end quote. We fall down before them and worship them. We concentrate on them, and they are thereby externalized in our lives. The student who masters the contents of Part 17 will not mistake the symbols for the reality. He will be interested in causes rather than effects. He will concentrate on the realities of life and will then not be disappointed in the results. And remember, you are the cause, and everything else is the effect. Moses was the cause, and the 10 Commandments was the effect. And now, let's start Part 17. We are told that man has, quote, dominion over all things, end quote. This dominion is established through mind. Thought is the activity which controls every principle beneath it. The highest principle, by reason of its superior essence and qualities, necessarily determines the circumstances, aspects, and relation of everything with which it comes in contact. The vibrations of mental forces are the finest and consequently the most powerful in existence. To those who perceive the nature and transcendency of mental force, all physical power sinks into insignificance. We are accustomed to look upon the universe with a lens of 5 senses, and from these experiences our anthropomorphic conceptions originate, but true conceptions are only secured by spiritual insight. And one thing I did forget to mention that we learned last week, that psychologists have found out that feeling is the only real sense that we have, and all the 5 senses are all extensions of this one sense. And that is very interesting, how we learn that the 5 senses deal with the external world, and and is part of the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is something that has been thrown out there. Remember, it is an evolution of the mind. It is an added part of the mind. There is first the subconscious. The subconscious is the source. The subconscious is the womb of creation. Everything happens for the subconscious. The subconscious is the world within, and the conscious mind is the world without. And everything from the world without has been brought forth from the inner world, and that explains a lot, especially if feeling is what happens within, and feeling is the only real sense that we have, and everything else is an extension of this feeling. Then he also goes over why that is so important, because remember, it is feeling, it is emotions which vitalize the thought and give actions to the thought. That is how you connect with it and actually give life to the image of what you have of yourself. Because remember, a thought is just a thought. Everybody thinks about going to the gym, but the people who actually go have an emotional connection to it. I just thought I'd add that in there for a second, because that was part of what we learned last time. So let's continue. Secured by spiritual insight. This insight requires a quickening of the vibrations of the mind, and is only secured when the mind is continuously concentrated in a given direction. Remember, when you concentrate on a given point, you are setting brain cells into activity. You form the circuit within your own mind. Continuous concentration means an even, unbroken flow of thought, a steady stream of consciousness, and is the result of a patient, persistent, persevering, and well-regulated system. Great discoveries are the result of long-continued investigation. The science of mathematics requires years of concentration, concentrated effort to master it, and the greatest science, that of the mind, is revealed only through concentrated effort. Concentration is much misunderstood. There seems to be an idea or effort or activity associated with it, when just the contrary is necessary. The greatness of an actor lies in the fact that he forgets himself in the portrayal of his character, becoming so identified with it that the audience is swayed by the realism of the performance. This will give you a good idea of true concentration. You should be so interested in your thought, so engrossed in your subject, as to be conscious of nothing else. Such concentration leads to intuitive perception and immediate insight into the nature of the object concentrated upon. All knowledge is the result of concentration of this kind. It is thus that the secrets of heaven and earth have been wrested. It is thus that the mind becomes a magnet, and the desire to know draws the knowledge, irresistibly attracts it, makes it your own. Remember the law of attraction. That is how you set it into play. When you desire to move along certain lines, you attract things mentally and physically into your world to help you grow along those specific lines which you so desire to move upon. Desire is largely subconscious. Conscious desire rarely realizes its object when the latter is out of immediate reach. Subconscious desires arouses the latent faculties of the mind, and difficult problems seem to solve themselves. The subconscious mind may be aroused and brought into activity in any direction, and made to serve us for any purpose, by concentration. The practice of concentration requires the control of the physical, mental, and physical being. All modes of consciousness, whether physical, mental, or physical. I wonder if they mean like psychical or spiritual, mental, and control of the physical, mental, and physical being. Maybe it could be spiritual being. All modes of consciousness, whether physical, mental, or physical, let's say spiritual, must be under control. Spiritual truth is therefore the controlling factor. It is this which will enable you to grow out of limited attainment and reach a point where you'll be able to translate modes of thought into character and consciousness. Concentration does not mean mere thinking of thoughts, but the transmutation of these thoughts into practical values. The average person has no conception of the meaning of concentration. There is always the cry, quote, to have, end quote, but never the cry, quote, to be, end quote. Remember how the ancients said, to be is to have. They fail to understand that they cannot have one without the other, that they must first find the, quote, kingdom, end quote, and the kingdom of heaven is within you, before they can have the, quote, things added, end quote. Momentary enthusiasm is of no value. It is only with unbounded self-confidence that the goal is reached. The mind may place the ideal a little too high and fall short of the mark. It may attempt to soar on untrained wings and instead of flying, fall to earth, but that is no reason for not making another attempt. Weakness is the only barrier in mental attainment. Attribute your weakness to physical limitations or mental uncertainties and try again. Ease and perfection are gained by repetition. The astronomer centers his mind on the stars and they give forth their secrets. The geologist centers his mind on the construction of the earth, and we have geology. So with all things, men center their minds on the problems of life, and the result is apparent in the vast and complex social order of the day. Which is why we are all here for each other, and it's so important for you to do the things that you want to do, for you to do the things that you are being called out to do, because those are the things where you have your mind focused on. Remember, we're learning about how your mind works right now. We're learning about how we work right now. So let's keep learning about how we work and take all of this and use it to move in the direction of your desire. Remember, it is an unfoldment. You must be the thing before you can have the thing. You must be it in here first, and then it'll externalize itself after. But once you form the conception, don't forget the other part, that action is necessary, because this live rock would not move until I move it, take the action to move it, regardless of how much I think about moving it. Thinking is me forming the image of myself to move it. Taking the action is the actual thing which causes it to move. Let us continue. Momentary enthusiasm is of no value. It is only with unbounded self-confidence that the goal is reached. The mind may place the ideal a little too high and fall short of the mark. It may attempt to soar on untrained wings and instead of flying, fall to earth, but that is no reason for not making another attempt. Okay, and then we read about weakness and repetition. The astronomer centers his mind. Okay, we read that. Okay, starting from here. All mental discovery and attainment are the result of desire plus concentration. And we also have our book, Think and Grow Rich. We haven't made the video of it yet, but that is the second book we've read after we graduated high school, you being the first. And they talk about desire, that desire is actually the most creative state, because when you really, really, really desire something, you're gonna do and find ways in order to make that desire come to pass. All mental discovery and attainment are the result of desire plus concentration. Desire is the strongest mode of action. The more persistent the desire, the more the authoritative and the revelation. Desire added to concentration will wrench any secret from nature. In realizing great thoughts and experiencing great emotions that correspond with great thoughts, the mind is in a state where it appreciates the value of higher things. The intensity of one's moments, earnest concentration, and the intense longing to become and to attain may take you further than years of slow, normal, and forced effort. It will unfasten the prison bars of unbelief, weakness, impotence, and self-belittlement, and you will come into a realization of the joy of overcoming. Remember the unfoldment that we have been talking about. You must unfold into that person you so see yourself becoming, because when you're thinking about it, you're in that as a thought form. Okay, you're forming the image of yourself, but you still need to take the actions and create the character of yourself, create those habits. The spirit of initiative and originality is developed through persistence and continuity of mental effort. Because business teaches the value of concentration and encourages decision of character. It develops practical insight and quickness of conclusion. The mental element in every commercial pursuit is dominant as the controlling factor. The desire is the predominating force. All commercial relations are the externalization of desire. Yes, because this camera, yes, it did exist first in the thought, but still, that person desired to bring it to pass, desired to create it, desired to do it. That is what made him take the action to do it. That's why you need to do the things that you love to do and have a desire to do. Because if you don't desire your job, if you don't wake up desiring to go to work, then you're not in the right place. You really aren't. You're there to help you get in the next direction, to move you forward to finding the right place for you. Our lives are too short to be anything but happy. Do what makes you happy. Find your passion. And don't worry about what anyone else thinks, because remember, we're not here to impede on anyone else's life or to do anything to change anyone else's habits. You're here to do what you're here to do. So, let's do it. Many of the sturdy and substantial virtues are developed in commercial employment. The mind is steadied and directed. It becomes efficient. The principal necessity is the strengthening of the mind, so that it rises superior to the distractions and wayward impulses of indistinctive life, and thus successfully overcomes in the conflict between the higher and lower self impulses of instinctive life, and thus successfully overcomes in the conflict between the higher and lower self. Now, if you guys don't know who Princess Mulford is, he was a real spiritual leader and a very high spiritualist. A while ago, he has a book called Thoughts Are Things that we're going to be looking into getting to read to you guys very soon. And he talks about between the higher self and the lower self of man. The higher self of man is the spiritual man, the man that is within this material being. And the lower self of you is this material man, the animal, this creature in which our spirit embodies and lives in. All of us are dynamos, but the dynamo of itself is nothing. The mind must work in the dynamo, must work the dynamo. Then it is useful, and its energy can be definitely concentrated. The mind is an engine whose power is undreamed. Thought is an omni-working power. It is the ruler and creator of all form, and all events occurring in form. Physical energy is nothing in comparison with the omnipotence of thought, because thought enables man to harness all other natural power. Vibration is the action of thought. It is vibration which reaches out and attracts the material necessary to construct and build. There is nothing mysterious concerning the power of thought. Concentration simply implies that consciousness can be focalized to the point where it becomes identified with the object of its attention. Now remember the example which you use for concentration with the magnifying glass. When we actually concentrate that light ray on any specific point, then the effect of that concentration is apparent. You'll burn whatever it is, all that light ray is being concentrated on. Same thing with you. When you're concentrating your thought on a specific purpose, remember, when you think you're setting those brain cells into activity, then all your cells will accumulate in that one form, and it creates the structure. You form the circuit within your own mind. And that will become your habitual way of thinking. And when it becomes your habitual way of thinking, remember what he's saying about thought. Thought is the mold. Thought is the power which gives form and shape to the mind. It creates the images for the mind to work with. And our body takes on that form and image, and we create that image in the external, like we've been going over this entire time. As food absorbed is the essence of the body, so the mind absorbs the objects of its attention, gives it life and being. Now that is very important that he says that too, because if you're with us with How the Mind Works by Christian D. Larson, he talks about consciousness and attention. Wherever you're placing your consciousness on, you're giving life to that specific thing in your life. Remember how we were talking a little bit over about you. Charles F. Haanel in the book You compares personal consciousness to a tuning fork. Whatever we are focusing our attention on, we are giving life to that thing. We are giving life to that thing. And the life that is being given to that thing is our life, like we're giving it. It's like it's there, but our own personal point of spark of consciousness is giving it like the life of what we're imagining it to be, because two people could perceive it in their own way, and their own personal consciousness is going to create it in the way that they perceive it. I know that made sense. I know there's a little bit more simplicity that could be involved in explaining it, but I know that was definitely absorbable. So let's continue. If you concentrate on some matter of importance, the intuitive power will be set in operation, and help will come in the nature of information, which will lead to success. Remember the law of attraction. Help will come in the nature of information, which will lead to success. When you make the decision to go for it, everything embodies responds to that by reflecting and bringing to you the things necessary to help you reach the thing which you desire to go. Intuition arrives at conclusions without the aid of experience or memory. Intuition often solves problems that are beyond the grasp of the reasoning power. Intuition often comes with a suddenness that is startling. It reveals the truth for which we are searching so directly that it seems to come from a higher power. Intuition can be cultivated and developed. In order to do this, it must be recognized and appreciated. If the intuitive visitor is given a royal welcome when he comes, he will come again. The more cordial the welcome, the more frequent his visits will become. But if he is ignored or neglected, he will make his visits few and far apart. Intuition usually comes in the silence. Great minds seek solitude frequently. It is here that all the larger problems of life are worked out. For this reason, every businessman who can afford it has a private office where he will not be disturbed. If you cannot afford a private office, you can at least find somewhere where you can be alone. A few minutes each day to train the thought along lines which will enable you to develop that invincible power which is necessary to achieve. Now remember the invincible power. We had just gone over it like 3 times. The invincible power is you concentrating your thought on a specific purpose, holding your thought on that with the power of your will until you form the circuit within your own brain, your mechanism of attachment. Remember that fundamentally the subconscious is omnipotent. There is no limit to the things that can be done when it is given the power to act. Your degree of success is determined by the nature of your desire. If the nature of your desire is in harmony with natural law or the universal mind, it will gradually emancipate the mind and give you invincible courage. Every obstacle conquered, every victory gained will give you more faith in your power, and you will have greater ability to win. Your strength is determined by your mental attitude. If this attitude is one of success and is permanently held with an unswerving purpose, you will attract to you from the invisible domain the things you silently demand. By keeping the thought in mind, it will gradually take tangible form. A definite purpose sets causes in motion which go out in the invisible world and find the material necessary to serve your purpose, bringing you to those things and bringing those things towards you by what? The law of attraction. You got it. You may be pursuing the symbols of power instead of power itself. You may be pursuing fame instead of honor, riches instead of wealth, position instead of servitude. In either event, you will find that they turn to ashes just as you overtake them. Why would they turn to ashes just as you secure them? Remember, because riches, wealth, honor, fame, position are all effects. They come from the cause. And what would be the cause of a position? Servitude. What would be the cause of riches? Wealth. What would be the cause of honor? Fame. Or what would be the cause of fame? Honor. Okay? Those are the effects, and you have to stay focused on the effects, focus on the idea of it, and position, riches, and fame will come to you as... I'm sorry. Let me redo this. Honor, wealth, and servitude are causes. Okay? Those are the things that you need to stay focused on. Position, riches, and fame are effects. Okay? Don't focus on the effects. Focus on the things which cause those effects. Premature wealth or position cannot be retained because it has not been earned. We get only what we give, and those who try to get without giving always find that the law of compensation is relentlessly bringing about an exact equilibrium. You reap what you sow. The race has usually been for money and other mere symbols of power, but with an understanding of the true source of power, we can afford to ignore the symbols. The man with the large bank account finds it unnecessary to load his pockets down with gold. So with the man who has found the true source of power, he is no longer interested in its shams or pretensions. Thought ordinarily leads outwardly in evolutionary directions, but it can be turned within, where it will take root on the basic principles of things, the heart of things, the spirit of things. When you get to the heart of things, it is comparatively easy to understand and command them. This is because the spirit of a thing is the thing itself, the vital part of it, the real substance. The form is simply the outward manifestation of the spiritual activity within. And you and I are this spirit. We have the power to say, I am spirit, I am that, I am this thing. And as I say I am this thing, I am building that picture of myself. Remember, spirit creates, and the self-contemplation of spirit creates the image of what the spirit is going to embody. For your exercise this week, concentrate as nearly as possible in accordance with the method outlined in this lesson. Let there be no conscious effort or activity associated with your purpose. Relax completely. Avoid any thought of anxiety as to results. Remember, power comes through repose. Let the thought dwell upon your object until it is completely identified with it, until you are conscious of nothing else. And remember to relax completely and avoid any thought of anxiety as to results. Stay focused on the idea of the thing that you want to do and not on the results, not on the effects. Focus on the cause. If you wish to eliminate fear, concentrate on courage. If you wish to eliminate lack, concentrate on abundance. If you wish to eliminate disease, concentrate on health. Form the circuit. Always concentrate on the ideal as an already existing fact. This is the germ cell, the life principle which goes forth and sets in motion those causes which guide, direct, and bring about the necessary relation which eventually manifests in form. Now that is the end of part 16, and let's end it with this lovely quote by Emerson, and it says, quote, "Thought is the property of those only who can entertain it," end quote. And that is from Emerson. Now, one thing I also want to add, always concentrate on the ideal as an already existing fact. Don't say, I'm going to be this, or I will be this. You have to say, I am this. I am that I am. Now, questions and answers. Question 1. What is the true method of concentration? To become so identified with the object of your thought that you are conscious of nothing else. 2. What is the result of this method of concentration? Invisible forces are set in motion, which irresistibly bring about conditions in correspondences with your thought. 3. What is the controlling factor in this method of thought? Spiritual truth. 4. Why is this so? Because the nature of our desire must be in harmony with natural law, and because spirit is the only thing that exists, and all things are made inside and out of the spirit. What is the practical value of this method of concentration? Thought is transmuted into character, and character is the magnet which creates the environment of the individual. Character equals destiny. 6. What is the controlling factor in every commercial pursuit? The mental element, the mind. 7. Why is this so? Because mind is the ruler and creator of all form, and even events occurring in form. 8. Wow, I like that one. Because mind is the ruler and creator of all form, and all events occurring in form. That one is good. 8. How does concentration operate? By the development of the powers of perception, wisdom, intuition, and sagacity. 9. Why is intuition superior to reason? Because it does not depend upon experience or memory, and frequently brings about the solution to our problems by methods concerning which we are in entire ignorance. And there's one thing I want to add that we have gained from Wallace D. Wattles when he talks about reason, that reason never sees the right ends of things. Reason never sees the best means to go about things, because reason, the intellect, could, and this was his example, the intellect can plan a